I'm gonna apologize in advance because these theories may just ruin your childhood show, Sesame Street. But honestly, those little puppets can be terrifying on their own. Like, remember that Elmo doll that literally told a child to kill himself? Yeah, cause that was a thing. But anyways, let me know in the comments below what your favorite show was as a kid. Hey everyone, welcome back to Most Amazing Top 10 and welcome to today's video. I'm your host, Lindsay Ivan, and today I'm bringing you the top 10 scary Sesame Street theories. Now, Sesame Street is known worldwide. It has been airing since 1969 and has created some well-known puppet characters. Fun fact, there was even a random crossover episode of Sesame Street with Star Wars where C-3PO and R2-D2 came to visit. So random. Although Sesame Street may seem harmless, there are a bunch of theories that will make you think otherwise. Starting off at number 10, we have the hallucination. So when the show began, the character Snuffleupagus was a figment of Big Bird's imagination. Snuffleupagus, or Snuffy, is a weird mammoth-looking creature covered in shaggy brown hair. Now, only Big Bird was able to see Snuffy, and people classified him as having schizophrenia. But then, eventually, other characters on the show began to see him too. Well, people believe that all the members in this town are experiencing a mass hallucination. It's some sort of weird plague that just has spread around the town and now everyone is delusional and can see Snuffy. Poor Snuffy, I bet he just wants some friends. But honestly, the old version of Snuffy looks terrifying. Like, I think he's supposed to be a mammoth, but he definitely doesn't look like one. Moving on, at number 9, we have Mr. Noodle. And I don't mean like the packages of ramen noodles. So, Mr. Noodle is shown to live outside a window at Elmo's house. Now, why does he live there? Like, seriously, out of all the places, he's living in some weird realm close to headache-inducing Elmo. Well, turns out that Mr. Noodle is trapped in a version of hell. Elmo then forces him to do whatever he says or else he'll face the consequences. But no matter what, Mr. Noodle will never escape and he will spend eternity being tortured by Elmo. Mr. Noodle is not allowed to talk either. He just has to nod, wave, and do as he's told. Elmo makes him do things like dance and do tasks for his own personal entertainment. The tasks always end up with Mr. Noodle completely embarrassing himself, but Elmo loves it. Poor Mr. Noodle, he's stuck listening to Elmo's squeaky voice for eternity. In our 8th spot, we have the Count. Now, the Count is far from the Twilight heartthrob vampires. He's this creepy purple puppet that is constantly teaching children how to count. Why does he do that? Well, people believe that he tricks these kids into playing his counting game and then afterwards he feasts on them. This is why we're constantly seeing new kids in each episode. Each kid falls for the same trap. They play with the Count thinking that he's friendly and funny, the next thing you know, they're his dinner. But the Count only likes to target young children. Why is that? Well, it's because kids are easier to fool. To ensure that he is not stopped, he put a spell on all the adults. That way they can't save the kids. Moving on, at number 7, we have the entrance to Sesame Street. So this next theory states that Sesame Street is a real place that children can go. However, there's just one catch. Once you find the opening, you can no longer escape. So they say that the clue to finding Sesame Street is all in the opening theme song. So if you listen to the song lyrics, it starts with sunny days. So in order to get there, it has to be sunny outside. Then the song says, while sweeping the clouds away. People think this means you have to carry a broom as identification to get in. Like, seriously, a broom? Continuing on, the song says, come and play. People think this means you need to be at a nearby playground. And then you have to say out loud, can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street? Oscar will appear in a nearby trash can and you have to give him the secret password, which is everything's A-okay. Now, this seems all too elaborate, but if any of you try it and meet Big Bird, then let me know. Although, that may be hard because as soon as you enter, you can't exit. Coming up next at number 6, Sesame Street is based on a true story. What? How are these puppet creatures based on a true story? Well, let me explain. So each character in Sesame Street is said to be a person in real life. Oscar the Grouch is a homeless man. Bert and Ernie are typical roommates struggling to pay rent and get by. Cookie Monster is a drug addict that constantly needs his fix. And lastly, Elmo is an orphan who only has a goldfish and crayons as his belongings. We are now at our halfway mark with Oscar the Hoarder. Now, it's quite unusual that Oscar the Grouch lives in a trash can. Well, turns out that he is a compulsive hoarder. This theory believes that Oscar once started off as just someone who would rummage through garbage and keep what he found. He would do this constantly, and the amount of stuff in his apartment became overwhelming. He also never wanted to leave his home. He had a lot of financial issues from not being able to work and ended up being kicked out of his home. The only other place out there for him that gave him comfort was the garbage can, so that's where he decided to live. It's also a place for him to get more trash since people will throw it right to him. Now, fun fact, Oscar was originally orange. Hard to believe it, but he was. So people theorize that he's still orange, but the color is hidden by layers of slime and dirt from him not washing. Coming in at number 4, we have Demon Elmo. Now, Elmo can be fairly annoying. His high-pitched voice and laugh can definitely get on people's nerves. Well, what if that's the point? People theorize that this creature is a demon. First off, he is red, the color associated with the devil, and secondly, he is targeted towards children. So he befriends young children, makes them feel safe, and then he harms and tortures them. Just like the thing with Mr. Noodle. He literally has trapped Mr. Noodle in a hell-like prison, making Elmo the devil. He tortures Mr. Noodle and other individuals constantly. The whole happy and child-friendly behavior is all just a persona. He actually has a much darker agenda. In our third spot, we have the drug problem. Now, people say that Sesame Street was once a really run-down and drug-infested area. The streets were dirty and tons of people had terrible drug addictions. Eventually, the streets were cleaned up. However, Oscar the Grouch was never able to move on from this. Oscar is said to be a huge drug addict. He lives in the garbage can with hopes that someone will discard a needle or anything that he can use to get his fix. Oscar was forced to just go cold turkey when the streets were cleaned up. That is why he may appear to have an attitude problem. It's because he is currently suffering through withdrawal. Man, I feel so bad for poor old Oscar. He literally can't catch a break out here. At number 2, we have Elmo's regressive behavior. Basically, this theory surrounds the fact that Elmo is stuck in a state of regression. So, Freudian psychology refers to regression as going back to an earlier stage in life. People think that this is why Elmo is stuck acting and behaving like a child. They believe that Elmo is actually older, yet he is stuck in this child mindset as it's a safe space for him. He is seen whining, using baby talk, and doing childlike activities. To support this theory, Elmo is constantly asking Mr. Noodle to show him how to complete a task like washing his hands. Elmo should be able to do that independently by now. Then he also always points out his crayons and his fish. Those are his comfort items that help him stay connected to this child state. Now, this theory also believes that Elmo is currently seeking treatment for it. In fact, Mr. Noodle is his doctor. Every time he opens the window, he sees Mr. Noodle. And, well, that's because Mr. Noodles is outside of Elmo's room monitoring his behavior. But for now, seems like Elmo is trapped in this state. And in our number 1 spot, we have the fact that Sesame Street is a psychiatric facility. Now, this is the most popular theory out there for many reasons. People are convinced that each character in Sesame Street are actually patients of a facility called Sesame Street. So let's break down some of the characters and what they're diagnosed with. Telly the monster is said to have an anxiety disorder. Telly is constantly worrying and can't focus on the task at hand. Then you have Count, who is said to have OCD. This would explain why he is continuously counting. In fact, his OCD is so severe that it prevents him from doing everyday tasks like answering the phone. In one episode, Count refuses to answer the phone because he wanted to count the rings. That shows how strong his impulses are. His OCD even prevents him from having a job. In the episode where Count gets a job as an elevator operator, he refused to stop at any floor but the 10th. That's because he felt the impulse to always count to 10. This is also why we see him locked away in his castle. He can't function in the outside world. Moving on, people believe that Cookie Monster suffers from an eating disorder. Throughout the show, you can see that Cookie Monster turns to binge eating as one of his coping strategies. And then lastly, you have Oscar the Grouch that suffers from oppositional defiant disorder. Now, argumentative and vindictive behavior and irritability are all considered part of this disorder. That literally perfectly summarizes up Oscar. There are so many other characters that are said to suffer from other disorders to prove this theory. And that's all I have for you for today. Let's move on to our comment shoutout. I'll be shouting out comments from my video, Top 10 Scary Hidden Messages in Songs. Christy Dunlap commented, all nursery rhymes are dark. And honestly, I agree with you on that one. Ring Around the Rosie is one of the scariest. I was terrified when I learned that it was about the Black Death. Why are we even singing those songs as kids? What's scary is that I don't even remember who taught it to me, I just one day was singing it. Jewel Nickerson commented, "There is way too many people with far too much time on their hands. Love from Nova Scotia." I agree. Who is sitting there at their computer or whatever listening to songs backwards? Also, a fellow Canadian. What's up? Hey, how are you? I've been to Nova Scotia once, but like when I was really little, so I don't really remember anything. THG_4Faith commented, "Who else sees a face in her chest?" Okay, how is that possible? I mean, I was wearing necklaces, so maybe they look like, I don't even know. But there's a thing called pareidolia. I mean, it means that you see faces in inanimate objects, or in this case, on me. And that's all the comments that I'm shouting out for today. Comment something down below if you want to be featured in my next comment shout out. And as always, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to Most Amazing Top 10 for more amazing videos. I've been your host, Lindsay Ivan, and I'll see you when I see you.